Do you suffer from anxiety paralysis? Does meal prepping horrify you? Is eating out your financial sin? Well, in this episode, Julia Marie shares how to save money on meals while dealing with mental health. Welcome to Financial Fornicating with Madam Money. My name is Tarra Jackson, aka Madam Money, and I help you to cure and avoid financial STDs. Hey, today I am so excited about this episode. I have a social media friend that is coming on to talk about one of my biggest financial sins. Yes, I am a financial fornicator, and one of my biggest financial sins is I like to eat out a lot, and I really like to go to bars. I like bars. I like airports with bars, hotels with bars, restaurants with bars, bars with bars. But I like sitting at bars and I like eating out. And one of the main reasons is I don't like to cook because I'm tired at the end of the day. But I have my friend Julia Marie that is on this episode with me to talk about budgeting, meal prepping, when I can splurge or when you can splurge, and when we should save and how to do that. So I'm really excited to have Julia on board to help us with this financial fornication of eating and spending money and eating out. So Julia, thank you so much for joining me today for Financially Fornicating with Madam Money. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Thank you, Tarra, for having me on your show, or I guess your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, before we get started, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am a single 30-something-year-old living in a city, and I am relatively new to budgeting. I've been budgeting for about 2 years now. At least the zero-based budget that Dave Ramsey does. And I've learned a lot over the last 2 years, specifically how budgeting and meal planning and all of that kind of relate to mental health. I do have depression and anxiety, so it is something that definitely added. It's given me a unique perspective to budgeting and meal prepping and when to splurge, when to save, things like that.
And I'm so glad that you're transparent about that, because I have suffered with anxiety before and take medication and all of that. And I need people to understand that mental health is just like having diabetes or having high blood pressure. It's a dis-ease in the body. And it's something that should be addressed and something that should be taken care of, and that we should not ostracize people for having that dis-ease. And so I appreciate your openness and transparency with that, and also how you utilize that as a perspective when it comes to dealing with money, because May was Mental Health Awareness Month, but I'm not sure how many people were aware about that. So I am excited to hear about your perspective. And I just wrote a blog or an email to a lot of my followers talking about how Dave Ramsey is wrong. And it's to shock the soul, but there are some things that I disagree with, but the foundation is relatively the same. We all speak the same language when it comes to budgeting, saving money, investing, and so forth. So I'm glad that you are able to bring your perspective to the show, Julia. So when we talk about budgeting, what is your perspective of budgeting?
Well, my perspective on budgeting has, I guess, evolved over the years. At first, I would just budget out a paycheck, so I'd get paid, and then I would write all the bills that had to come out of it, but it was by paycheck, paycheck by paycheck. It wasn't a full sit down before the beginning of the month, write out a zero-based budget, and then that's your plan for the month. There are a few things about Dave Ramsey that I don't agree with either, but his budgeting advice I have found to work best for me. So, especially when it comes with, I still have my problems, especially with, I think it's more behavior. I have to get into the mode of reconciling my budget, so not just creating my budget, but actually reconciling it against my checking account and writing down all of the transactions with it. Mm-hmm. And that I kind of think relates back to my mental health, just because if you've ever had depression or anxiety, you'll know you get into these moods where you don't want to do anything.
Right.
And
mm-hmm.
it's a slump. And there are times I remember there was one time a few years ago where I had to go to my parents' house, and I really did not want to go, to a point where I had to physically force myself to get up, put pants on, and walk out of the house. And I'm walking to my car, I felt like there was this rock on my chest and like a weight. And so it's a lot harder. But I've found ways to deal with it. One of those ways is actually being on YouTube has helped. When I first started my YouTube channel, I didn't even mention my depression, and I stopped making videos for 9 months. And I think my mental health had like played a role in that, because I feel like it's a part of me. I shouldn't be ashamed of it. So I need to just open up, and this is how it is.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you were able to leverage social media to help you through that challenging time. And I know that there's so many other people that are dealing with depression, dealing with some form of mental health, that feel like they're the only ones. And I keep telling people that you don't need to suffer in silence. There's a whole world of people that are dealing with the same thing. And if we come together, we can definitely find a cure, help each other through it. So thank you for sharing that on YouTube.
Definitely. I know a few of the frugal and financial YouTubers that I talk to, they've told me they don't talk about it on their channel. I think one person does, or has made at least one video on it, but they don't mention it otherwise. But they've told me, my husband has this, or they know people in their lives who, who have depression, or they have it themselves, but they don't openly talk about it. So it's kind of amazing. One person comes forward and, it's like, what's that phrase where?
Yeah, the floodgates open. Yeah, no one likes to be the first one, but once the first one hits, then everybody wants to come out. So
yeah, so it's kind of amazing, because it's not something you can pick up by just looking at someone.
Exactly. So you talked about your philosophy with budgeting and how that's worked for you. And with budgeting, I use the app Mint. I use Mint to pretty much reconcile my bank accounts. And that helps me because, one, I don't like writing things down, and I like things electronic, whether it's on my phone or on the computer. So that helps me keep track of transactions, to balance it to my account, because all the transactions are posted there as well. So my philosophy is use whatever, if it's an Excel spreadsheet, if it's a piece of paper, if it's an app, do whatever you can to master your money, because if you don't tell your money where it's going, your money will tell you what you can't do. So we kind of agree with each other on budgeting. So one of my, like I mentioned earlier, one of my financially fornicating things that I do, or financial fornicating things I do, is I like to eat out. I like to splurge, and when I splurge, I go out to eat. So when we talk about food and meals, when is appropriate to splurge versus when we should be more frugal and save, in your opinion?
Well, this kind of comes down to, in my opinion, this comes down to things like, if it's just me, then I will save and I will eat at home. If it's like, let's say it's a work day and some of my colleagues and I have decided we want to go out for lunch. In that case, I will splurge. I try not to go above $40 for lunch, though. I do put a cap on it. And I mean, and there are plenty of places to eat that you can get good food at $40 or under per meal, and I include a tip in that. So, but other than that, I save. I cook food. I meal prep on Saturday, so I write down. I usually go on Pinterest. I've got a whole board on Pinterest about healthy eating, healthy recipes. I'll go through there, decide what I want to eat. Then I'll make the grocery list based on the ingredients in the recipes, and then Sunday morning I go shopping, and then Sunday afternoon I cook. So I've been cooking all day, and I intermix. I actually did some cleaning, because when I put stuff in the oven to roast for like 20 minutes, I've got some free time, so I try to not sit on my couch. I try to do other things in that 20 minutes. So for me, it's all about just, if you cook at home, then you can have more money later on to go out with your coworkers. It's a great networking thing I've learned, as well as when I'm with my family and friends. I've learned that if we cook, it actually helps us bond. Some of my best memories with my mom are when we cook together.
That's a great perspective, that you can leverage the meal prepping process by getting closer with family. Never thought about that. My sister, she loves to cook as well. So we, even though we like to go out and eat, I have a good time when she's cooking because she's cooking for me. But when we're cooking together, that is a great bonding time. Especially, my mom passed away, but especially if you still have your mom, or you still have your grandmother, or you have a family member that you haven't, been around for a while, that's a great opportunity to bond. But what I like most about what you just said about the splurging is that take the opportunity to splurge when it has a purpose. So if you're going to be networking, that is a great opportunity to splurge a little bit. But if it's just because you don't want to cook, or you're just relaxing, or you really don't have any purpose to be out, having those meal prepping or doing that meal prepping can save you a whole lot of money, because you're not just eating out just because you don't feel like cooking.
And I can honestly say, it's taken me a lot to get where I am with meal prepping, in 9 months, because having depression and, and anxiety, and I get in these moods where I don't want to do anything.
Right.
And someone commented on one of my videos that she called it anxiety paralysis, where you have so much anxiety you can't do anything. You're paralyzed. And I'm like, that's when I, order on Grubhub. That's when I walk to the McDonald's that's close to me. So I've come up with ways to deal with that. So that's why I've kind of spread it out. I've learned if I meal prep on Saturday, then Sunday I go grocery shopping early in the morning, like 9 a.m. when the store opens. And then I cook in the afternoon. And that's worked for me. There's been a few weekends it's kind of fallen. I don't say it's fallen through. It hasn't really worked the way it should. But for the most part, it's really helped me set a budget and stick to it as far as groceries go.
And Julia, I have to agree with you on that. When I was doing that for a while, I was determining what I wanted to have for the next week. And then I went grocery shopping on Sunday after church. Then I cooked all day Sunday. And then I pretty much had my meals for the week. I either had my lunch and my dinner, or at least had dinner there. So when I got home, I didn't have to worry about being tired and cooking. I can just pop it in the microwave and do that. And I think when I fell off, and I recently fell off, was when I started traveling a lot on the weekends. And so I didn't have my I was traveling on Sundays, or I was out of town on Sundays. So I didn't have my meal prep day, which then threw me off for the entire week. Because if Monday came around or Tuesday came around, I'm exhausted and I don't feel like cooking. So that is a great use of your time during the weekend, if you're able to do that, or while the family, some people have families, while the family is relaxing on a Sunday, or you can cook with the family. They can decide what they want to eat for, the week, and then they can cook with you or whatever. So I have to say that I agree with you on that. And also with the mental health thing, you're absolutely right. Anxiety paralysis is definitely real. I've experienced that recently, where I've had several things I needed to do, several articles I needed to write, and my brain just didn't want to, I didn't want to do anything. I just was paralyzed. As much as I said, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do this, I just couldn't move. And it's very real, but I think we ignore it. And we just say, oh, I'm just tired, or I'll get to it later, and it just never happens. What are some ways, or what are some tips that you have for us if we're dealing with that but that anxiety paralysis?
It's actually funny you should ask, because I did a whole video on this on YouTube.
Awesome.
And it's basically 3 steps. And I have a blog post on it too. But the first step is just to embrace the slump. Like, just embrace it. Watch TV, write in your journal. If you're into like those adult coloring books, I know a few people do that for a couple hours. But I never let that get past 3 hours. So, because sometimes you just need to relax. We're not machines. We cannot work 24/7.
Right.
So sometimes you just need to relax. So my first piece of advice was just embrace the slump. and just do whatever you feel like doing, whatever that might be. And then if I hit that 3-hour max, then I start the whole mental pep talk thing. Like I start telling me, like, you can do this, you've been through this before. Because as soon as I get going, I'm fine. As soon as I get up and do one task, and I feel motivated again. So I tell myself just do one thing, just get one thing done. So I do that. I do one task. Sometimes I compromise, and if it's something I can do while watching TV, I will do that. So for example, today when I was cooking, I'm making garlic asparagus this week.
Nice.
I chopped up the garlic and then the asparagus sitting in front of my TV instead of in the kitchen. So I got a TV tray, cutting board, and I brought the food out here, and I just did it watching TV. So I folded laundry while watching TV. That way I can still kind of be in that slump. I can still watch TV like I want to, but things are still getting done.
Cool. And so number 1 is embrace the slump. Number 2 was mental pep talk. So do your mental pep talk. You can do this. Come on, girl, get up. I've done that several times, especially early in the morning. All right, it's time to get up. Yeah. And number 3,
just do one task.
Do one task at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that I found out when I get that anxiety paralysis is I feel overwhelmed, like I have so much to do. And when I feel overwhelmed, that makes me more anxious. So then I do more of nothing.
Yeah.
So doing one task at a time and feeling that accomplishment and then moving on to the next task. So that's very good. So that's awesome. As a recap of what you mentioned was the budgeting is, reconcile your accounts with your budget, set a budget somehow, whether you're going to write it down, whether you're going to use an Excel spreadsheet, or whether you're going to use an app. The app I use is Mint, but understanding where your money is going. And to save and splurge, again, I love, make your splurge on purpose. Networking or something to connect you to improve your life in some way, shape, or form, whether it's to improve your side business, your full-time business, your professional development, or your personal development. And then save by meal prepping and doing it very simply. Plan your meals, shop based on what your menu is going to be, and shop on Sunday, cook on Sunday, so you don't have to worry about it Monday through Friday. So that is awesome. And then your 3 steps to the mental health situation is really awesome. So how can people find your YouTube channel?
Well, my YouTube channel, it's my name, Julia Marie. But they can find it. It's youtube.com/user/JML258.
JML258, and we'll also have that in the comments as well.
You can find me on Instagram at juliamarie.yt. And my blog is citygirllivingOnABudget.blogspot.com.
Nice. City girl living on a budget. At blogspot.com.
Yeah.
Okay. So Julia, what I love about you right now, you may be new into the space of sharing your wisdom, but you have lots of wisdom. So I encourage all of my listeners to check Julia Marie out. She has some great tips out there. Support her, share her stuff. She is going to become one of the loud voices of financial literacy, I can tell, and I really appreciate that. So Julia, thank you so much for financially fornicating with Madam Money in this episode, and we look forward to big things with you.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to coming back sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening to Financially Fornicating with Madam Money. Till next time, make sure you avoid those financial STDs, substantially tremendous debt, and you check out more tips like this on madammoney.com, MADAMMoney.com.
podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.